everyone, and welcome back to Minecraft Dinosaurs. I am standing outside of what we worked on in our last episode, the psittacosaurus enclosure, where they are all sat around the feeder looking absolutely adorable, because we're going to go through and name them here in just a moment. But what I want to talk about is kind of the central theme of this episode, which is going to be buildings. We're not going to work on anything dino specific today. We're rather going to work on decorative buildings and other functional buildings to kind of flesh out the life of the park and make it feel more than just a bunch of different like enclosures. We're going to try and build out some of the infrastructure to give you points of interest to look for, to go for, and to walk throughout the park. So this is the first one. We talked about this last time and it was kind of just a blue wool outline, but I've gone ahead, built it up. We have the tunnel we talked about, how the path comes down from where the info center's like entrance is, comes down here, and then takes you through this tunnel to lead you out to the rest of the park. I really like this. This is just kind of inspired by a few things I've seen around my city. And then if we come up here on the inside, there's this really magnificent view that I wanted to capture, which kind of shows the entirety of the forest that we've been working on throughout the series. We also have some good views into the enclosure we built last time. Just down there, you can sometimes see the psittacosaurs like wandering around, and it's really cute. There's some other things that I want to put in here, but I'm just not quite sure what else needs to go in here, as like I'm not sure what else needs to go in the upper floor of the info center and the lower floor of the info center. We've been talking a little bit about that, and we will return to the info center really soon. I just wanted to make sure that this section was complete to kind of finalize this side of the psittacosaurus enclosure and get it all looking super nice. And like I said, we're going to be moving on to other buildings in this episode to fully flesh out the park. But let's go down here and name our psittacosaurs. Let's find, this one is a male, so I'm going to name this one Bobby. I'm going to name this one, who is a male, we're going to name this one Song. This one over here is a female, so we're going to name it Uga. And then over here we have a male, we're going to name him Lewis. And this one right here, we have a female, which is going to be Marge. And this one should also be a female, which we're going to name Mazu. Everyone that left a comment and left a name suggestion should be on screen now. Thank you so much to everyone who left a comment and like supported the video. They were so nice. I'm really glad that you all enjoyed this enclosure and enjoyed these adorable little guys. So with that said, let's move on to our second build of the episode. And that brings me to this blank space over here that's kind of across the way from our info center and right behind the Triceratops enclosure. Now this has been cleared out since we built this enclosure over here, and I've kind of been at an impasse on what to do with this space. Obviously I wanted it to have like room for enclosures out here, but I don't know how many are still left to go in this little area. So I was thinking it would be really cool if we built kind of some park infrastructure in this area, starting with like a little cabin campsite. So I'm going to go through, pretty up the terrain just a little bit, and work on a little bit of a layout of what I want to build. Alright, I got us cleaned up over here, and I've outlined what I want to be 4 different cabins that meet in the middle with a little like campfire. So I think that we really have a good starting point. I want to go look over at the cabin we built in episode 1 to kind of see what kind of blocks I used and what I can do in terms of style, what I could learn from my very old build, and try and make something a little bit fresh and new. Alright, I've been looking at our old cabin, and we've got these like darker chiseled blocks, and I think that they'll be really cool to build some of the cabins with. And then on this side, I did kind of spruce with like spruce planks to kind of act as like reinforced boards. Then on the inside, I think it's more of the same. We can probably just use similar blocks and like similar decor to kind of make sure that both of these builds are rather cohesive. I think that they're going to be a little bit more like shack-like rather than this build. Like this build is definitely very early, and I was still trying to figure out what style we're going with for the park. So I think we're going to try and use some of the same blocks, but just with a little bit of a new style. And after a little bit of designing and creative, I have gathered all the blocks that I think we're going to need to build each of these cabins. So without wasting too much more time, let's go ahead and get to work. I think that I'm just about wrapped up with these cabins, and I've got to say, I think that they look really, really cool. They are definitely a big improvement off of something we built at the very start. Like, I wish I had built like one of these as my starter house, but I think it just goes to show how much we've improved building in this world. Just little things that we picked up, little like improvements that we've been making throughout this whole process of building out this park. I'm really, really happy with these. I think that they'll look so, so cool once we get some more of the foliage built in around here. I don't think we'll have enough time to build all of the trees necessary to fill this entire space, but I do have one more structure over here, which I've kind of left outlined because I wanted to talk briefly about it because this structure will probably be repeated across the park a couple of times. I think we're only going to build one for this episode, and then we'll build some others in some future episodes, but I really want to build a Firewatch tower. I think it's a pretty good staple of national parks in general. I played a game called Firewatch a long, long time ago, and it was a big inspiration for lots of what I do building in this world. So I think to kind of complete that inspiration circle, we should build a really, really cool Firewatch tower to look over some of our park. For this time lapse, I actually wanted to slow things down for a bit and respond to one of the comments I got on my last video and a frequently asked question that I get a lot, and that's, can I use your builds as inspiration for my own world and my own series and like anything for my own use? And basically what I want to say to that is, of course you can. I make these builds not only just because I think they're cool and I have a lot of fun playing in my world, but I make them to inspire you guys to build in this mod and give you some ideas of what you can do with this mod and with the game. And I think that it's the goal of Minecraft creators, in my opinion, to make builds that inspire others to make at least something similar or inspire them to make something cool. But I do want to say that there is a fine line between taking an inspiration and just block for block copying. If you're just gonna take this build, for instance, and copy it into your world and say it's yours, that's just basically blatant plagiarism. But if you're gonna take this build, look at it, see what makes it cool, and then adapt certain features into your own build with your own style, making it fit into your world, that's literally the goal of what this series is. And so I hope that these videos serve as that inspiration for you all. Again, I really hope that you take what is in these and apply it to your own world. Obviously, I'm very dinos focused, so I know I get comments all the time that are like, this inspired me to start my dino world, and honestly that is what fulfills me and keeps me going. So if you have any of those, you should totally post pictures in my Discord because I love seeing the dinos builds. But yeah, that's just something I wanted to bring up instead of just doing the music again for this time lapse. I know this is going to be a very time lapse focused episode just because we're building a bunch of buildings and it's kind of difficult to do it any other way. But thank you to this user for the comment, and let's get back to the video, where I'm starting actually early morning before we have our good lighting, because look at that. I am loving the little sight line from over here of just seeing that in the distance. It looks absolutely phenomenal. I had so much fun with just this little build. Like it's tall, but it's kind of very small. It didn't take super duper long, like probably a whole hour just to build this up, and I really, really love it. I think it's got some impressive detail. Like I'll go right in here to the inside, and I really love doing this interior. I think this is very Firewatch Towery. I tried to include some of like the dino stuff, like with a Dinopedia. There's a laser pointer in the toolbox, just to kind of like make sure that the Firewatchman's kind of looking over our ranger station and kind of like looking out over the park. I think that this is a really fun interior. I think this is a really fun build, and I could not be any happier. I think it's really cool. I love the little cabin like work site down here. I think that this is like really good levels of detail and what I want to strive for like throughout this park. I think the only thing that it's missing is the terraforming around it, but if you didn't notice, there's a whole lot of space here that needs filling up because I don't think we can fit like another enclosure in here. If we do, maybe it'll be something like really small. If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear them like down in the comments. That would be very, very nice. But we do need to build like trees at least around this area, and I think we're simply running out of time if I want to complete my third build, which I guess we should probably go ahead and head over to. Where, if you recall, a couple of episodes ago, I built this sniffer farm kind of out of the way of our main base. It kind of has just sat here in this grass, just like with all our sniffers in here, producing the torch flowers and the pitcher pod seeds down in this little hole. And it's kind of just sat here since that episode, and I had the promise that I would turn this area into a greenhouse. So for our final build of the episode, I want to focus on all of the plants in the mod and make a space where we can cultivate and multiply them, as well as build a couple of other farms, like maybe a bee farm, cocoa farm, maybe some flower farms, just so we can have readily available materials for our builds. So I'm gonna get to work on laying out some like foundational stuff, and I'll bring you back when we're looking a little bit more ready to get to work. I think that looks just about good. I went for this kind of circle in the middle around the sniffer farm to kind of make this almost the middle, just because it has the most movement of what we'll have. I think we have enough space to fit a small bee farm on this back wall here, and then these two will be kind of where we grow all of our prehistoric plants, just to really have like each one kind of like showcased in this. I was originally going to do this in the info center, but I think its own build to really show off these parts of the park and like those specific things in the mod will be really, really cool. So I'm going to keep building, try and build up the structure a little bit more, and I'll bring you guys back when I have a little bit more work done. As you can see, I've gone for a lot of stone colors, so I'm going through with a green strip to kind of add a pop of color. I'm starting with the dark green, and then when we go back to our texturing phase, I'll probably add in a lot of light green colors and try and just make this the pop of color that like will set us aside from the stone, make it so that the build's actually interesting and not just one big gray splotch. And I really want to make this build very like glass feeling. I mean, this is a greenhouse after all, so they are typically like basically walls of glass because you want to have enough light getting through for your plants. So I'm going to kind of mimic what we did over at the info center with the big glass walls, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I think I'm going to use white glass because I think it'll look a little bit better than the clear glass for some reason. I think it'll just like, I guess like in my brain, it traps gases a little bit better for our plants. But if we could have like these glass walls either side so you can see really good into the greenhouse, see all of the plants from the outside, I think that'll look really, really cool. The structure is looking good, and I think originally my thought process was to leave all of the roof sections flat, so that way it kind of looks very like, I don't know, it kind of looks like a cake right now if I'm being honest, but I think I want to add some interest onto the roof and give it just a little bit more for your eyes to look at. So I think I'm going to try and make a bunch of skylights, probably using some from the info center, and maybe even something like circular on top, like a dome up here, just so that way we have plenty of natural light getting into our greenhouse. But again, spheres and circles in Minecraft are really hard, so we're going to see what happens up there. I believe that does it for the exterior of this build. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. I did end up putting all of those skylights in, and I think they look wonderful from the inside and outside, just really letting in all of that natural light we wanted. So I think the inside is the only thing we have left to do, and we really need to work on making some of this build functional, because as I said, I want this to, one, show off all of the prehistoric plants, but I do want this to be kind of a hub for some different like kind of plant related farms. We have a bunch over at the food factory, but I want to be able to come in here, grab all the prehistoric plants I need, come in here, get all the honeycomb I need for different things, just anything I could really make a farm for and fit it in here. I'm going to try and do that, starting with the materials I have over here for a bee farm. As I said, I use a lot of honeycomb to make candles for our builds, just for the like reeds, for the railings. I use a ton of candles, but I never have any honeycomb, so I'm going to put a farm on this back wall, and hopefully it'll provide all that we need. Okay, the bees are in, and they are already producing a ton of honeycomb. Like, it's literally been about 10 minutes since I got this built. I went back here quickly, kind of prettied this up a little bit, and built this simple contraption, basically just trying to get some glowberry farm to go in, just so we can have that. I also have some hanging roots here, just so if I ever need some more, I can just come here, hold down my mouse button for a little bit, gather up some, and then get to work. So that'll be helpful. I think the only other like Minecrafty farm that I'm thinking of is maybe just a cocoa bean farm, but I don't know how small they are. So I'm going to try and work one in, but I think the last thing we have to do for this greenhouse is get the interior ready, and then we can start working on our prehistoric plants. Bringing you guys back a little bit early from the interior building time lapse because I've made quite a bit of progress, and before I do my next step, I wanted to bring you guys back and talk to you about the kind of setup that I've got built over here. I put this little analyzer station over here so we can throw in all of our plant fossils, and then if we head over to where we put the bee farm guts and the other two farms, we have this kind of row of cultivators. This is very manual. I don't think I want to do a very automatic version of this. I like the system of fossils and archaeology where you put something in the analyzer, put it in the cultivator, and then you get your stuff. But I think both of these machines will kind of be our plant focused ones. We'll do some others with the dinosaurs a little bit later on in the series, but just these two things will really help us get going, and we can put all of our plants in all of these different spots. I have been busy digging out this basement kind of storage area for each of our prehistoric plants. We've got a barrel for each. I don't think we'll need that much storage because they're already kind of hard to farm, and I want to use them a lot, but I don't want to overuse them. So I think this works out pretty good. I've been able to go through and farm a bunch of them. There's a couple in here that are a little bit difficult to farm, like this one over here. When you place down the plant, it only gives you berries upon bone meal, and then the berries don't seem to do anything other than feed the dinosaurs. So I can't really replicate this unless I cultivate this one. That applies to all these three that have like the berries on their icons, because I just can't seem to get the plant. If you know any way to get the plant in survival, please let me know, because I don't want to have to keep cultivating those three different things, because this one especially looks really cool for like desert environments, but I only have the berries and I can't do anything with them until I get this specific plant again. But the rest of them I have farmed up, and we have plenty going through here. I built this thing over here. It is a flower farm, originally by Shulkercraft. The link to all the Shulkercraft tutorials and any tutorials used in this episode will be in the description. But I tried building this, and then it didn't really work for the prehistoric plants. It was just a little bit slow, and we'll grab one just to kind of show you what I mean here. When I was originally doing it, it would bone meal that specific one, but it wouldn't spread onto this thing, so I had to rig up a system where I use observers instead of note blocks, and it seemed to slow it down just enough so that way when I flick this lever, it will spread onto the actual platform. This might not be the most efficient way to do it, but it does work for what I need it to do, and it does help me just make these plants a little bit faster. So I'm rather contend with it. And again, we have just a little room over here. This just takes me over to the sniffer farm so I can get out all of this stuff. I might decorate back here, but honestly, I don't think I really need to. But all in all, I think that this is a good expansion, a good place where we can store all of our things, and we left in a couple barrels for when they add in some new stuff. Not a ton, but we could maybe expand this a little bit if we need more space. But let's take all the plants we've just farmed, head back up to our greenhouse, and finish filling it out with all of the plants. And there we go. I think that this is looking really, really cool. I tried to represent each of the prehistoric plants that I could in all of the different things and just trying to make sure that each of them are represented across this entire build. And I think I've done a pretty good job. This also served as a little bit of like a tester of like different like combinations of the plants that I want to start using in all of our enclosures and in some other future builds. Just trying to see what goes together really nice. What can I mix and match to kind of create its own little unique environment? Trying not to like just spam them all over the place. Really trying to put some thought into, oh, this looks kind of pretty together, or oh, if we mix in some of this, it looks a little bit nice. Just really trying to come up with some new stuff that I can use throughout the park. But with that all done, I think this build is basically finished. There's a couple things I could add in the future, but for now, I'm pretty happy with it, and it's time I get this video out. So, if you guys have enjoyed, I would ask you to consider subscribing. It's been a lot of fun working on just different builds around the park, and I'm so excited that we can now use some of those features in the mod that I haven't been really paying attention to now. So yeah, I think this has been a really good progress forward, and I hope to see you guys in the next episode. See ya!